So part 2 for turning this 3D printed T-Rex skull into a proper dragon skull that's burned and a little shredded, I guess. I added some more cotton and Mod Podge to build up some of these layers a little bit more to get the facial expression that I wanted. I also went over the horns especially and just some of the highlight areas on the cotton with some wood glue. So the added horns that weren't 3D printed are a little bit stiffer now, so they'll be a little bit more durable. What I am doing today is adding the paint. So for starters, I'm going to be using burnt umber. The goal is to get a base coat of kind of dirty, grimy stuff that's going to start bringing out the texture. So you want to get a decent sized brush, water it down a little bit. This is just water I have in a spray bottle for convenience. You also want to have a paper towel handy. We're going to just start rubbing it in. And then once you put a little bit on, just kind of dab some of it off so that more of it gets caught in the creases and you end up with nice variations that are what is going to make this look really good in the end. So I have a good base coat now of the burnt umber. You can see a lot more detail now that there's some color on it. I went ahead and painted the horns some. I think I'm gonna end up making those black. The teeth I'm gonna go hit with some fresh off-white at some point. But I wanted to make sure that the gum area was covered in burnt umber too, because I figure, well, this dragon probably has pretty filthy teeth. So I didn't want them to be all nice and white and perfect with no grime at the bottom. All about the grime. Okay, so I think, therefore I am, and therefore it is time, I think for some red. Let's make this guy a little bit bloody. Now this red is a little bit bright, almost an orange red, so I'm going to dull it down just a little bit. I got a touch of blue here. Now I've got to see which areas I want to be most bloody. Oops, I missed a spot. There were a lot of nooks and crannies in this guy because I put flesh under here, just a thin layer, and then I added these pieces here that are kind of as if the head had been ripped off. So let's hit this with a little bit of red. This part here is going to be not so much bloody as burnt. So the bloodier areas will probably be in here, which this brush still has way too much brown on it, so I'm going to give it a little rinse. Probably this brush too. Let's try that again. Little red. Okay, yeah, that's nice. We want to take a lot of that off because it looks a little too bright. So again, just grab a little bit of that blue. That makes it more of a purplish red. And I mean, the horns aren't going to be bloody, so you don't need to hit that area. Painting the inside of the skull red because I'm possibly going to add a nice red LED inside so he kind of glows from the inside. Not sure, but painting red is going to look nice inside no matter what, so that way I'm ready to go if I do want to do an LED. It's looking very gory inside. It's a bloodbath. Now I have left some areas exposed with the lighter color that was underneath. I can hear just be a little bit of bone showing through. Some little bits of white are fine because it looks like either bone or fatty tissue that will be lighter in color. You want to leave those variations so that you keep that very dimensional look that you're getting with these paint effects. It's time now for some black. This would be the really charred portions. I am going to have a little bit of burnt umber on my palette also. I just sprayed paint everywhere. Wonderful. Okay, yeah, so some burnt umber too, just because you might want a little bit of variation with the black so it doesn't look so artificial like you added it on top. We are adding it on top, but we want it to still look integrated as part of the entire effect. By the time we finish, it should look cohesive and natural. You want your brush to be pretty dry. We're not really watering it down so much here, because we want it to stay a little bit more on top. So I've decided that I would like the horns to be pretty much black as opposed to more of a bone color. I am still wiping off some of the black because in nature they wouldn't probably be just straight up black. They'd still have a little bit of variation. I especially like the horns being black over here because these teeth being lighter, everything stands out a little bit better. I'm also going to come in and touch up the teeth, make them a little bit lighter, touch up some of these tendon areas so that they stand out from the burned areas. So with a finer brush, I'm going to make these forehead scales stand out just a little more by darkening the shadow where each plate overlaps the next. It's just little things that will help your piece read better visually, exaggerating the natural shadows just a little bit. So I finished with the burned flesh portion. Now I'm going to come back in with a little bit of yellow just to bring out some kind of pussy, oozy spots. And mix that with some off-white so it's not quite so bright. And I'll probably need a little bit of umber, so I'm going to pour a little burnt umber on there also. So you just need to kind of look at it and see which parts might look good with a little bit of a pop of yellow, just a little bit, to make them stand out a little more like fat or something. It's all melty. We're going to do the same thing with the teeth, but erring more on the side of the off-white than the yellow. It's fine if they're a little bit yellowish because yellow fangs are even meaner looking. Let's face it, this guy probably has never brushed in his life. He certainly is not going to be well brushed in death. Now I'm going to add just a touch of pure white onto the tips of some of the teeth as highlight. Again, we are trying to maximize the three-dimensional effect that we created by applying all of that cotton. I'm adding a little bit of burnt umber over the top just to catch the texture a little bit, make them look integrated, even though I've added on the highlights, which made them stand out just a little bit too much. It's a layering process. With the pure white, I'm dabbing on just a few little highlights in select places. adding a light color to the base of some of these horns because they got a little bit kind of just lost in all the burnness. So just trying to make sure that they stand out properly. The last thing that I'm going to do is to add a little bit of a glossy black to some of the horn areas and to just a little bit of the burnt areas to add a little bit of variation in the sheen, not just the colors. Just brushing a little bit on. Well, I think that about does it for this guy.